Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. We are in 2023. I'm still recording this in 2022, but I know that I'm happier that it's 2023. I can tell you that already. Folks, I hope you can join the podcast or the Patreon /Rontowski. I do 2 more Paranormal Karen episodes, one about Utica, one about what I'm thinking it's called In Bed with Paranormal Karen. Very sexy, not really. Or you can get a reading at karenrontowski.com. Psychic Stand-Up is coming to you this year. Those dates coming. But right now, I am talking to Peter Martocci. Did I say? No, listen, I live in a place that was I rent from a woman named Maria Tucci. That's why I said that. Peter, say your last name right.
Martocci?
Martocci. I got a Tosi and a Tucci.
It's all good. Everybody always says Tucci, Tochi, Tusi, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just a name.
It's just I should get it right. I'm awful about details on my podcast, as you already know from our 3-second conversation before I hit record. The Blue Collar Spiritualist on Instagram and TikTok, a new podcast out called Spiritual Graffiti. Peter, how are you? Do you do, I didn't even let you answer that. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Glad we got that important part of the conversation. I just did 2 readings in a row that were pretty intense, so I'm a little not grounded. So I want to talk to you especially about 2 things, about mediumship and also just kind of the stuff you do. But let's start here because you're a New York guy. You don't fit the typical metaphysical description. How did you get into this area of work?
Basically, I guess as a kid, I've kind of always had experiences growing up. I would see things and have experiences, and I kind of blocked it because I remember being in the house and seeing a little boy. And I'll never forget it because I looked in the eyes of this spirit, and I blocked it for a long time because it scared the shit out of me.
Was it sad? It was just sadness in there.
I think it was more. I think it just shocked me than anything. It wasn't necessarily. I found out later that this house that I was hanging out with a group of friends, the person who owned the house told me that a boy died there afterwards. But I saw this spirit and it was just kind of hanging out there. But I remember, I'll never forget the look in the eyes. It was just it wasn't even like eyes. It was like a purple translucent gaze, and it just looked into my soul. And I just remember thinking holy shit, don't ever show me that again, whoever you are or whatever, and I was just kind of scared of it. And then in my 20s, I'm 39 now. In my early 20s, my grandmother passed away, who was kind of the matriarch of the family. Mm-hmm. And she started coming to me in dreams. I would have very vivid dreams of she had a very memorable hug, and I remember always her hug was a way of just self-care for me in a sense. Mm. And I remember having vivid dreams of her just giving me a hug, simple stuff. And then one night I had this dream where I kind of received information from her and stuff like that. And my mom struggled a lot with her passing because her father actually died when she was a kid too. Mm. And I tried to comfort her because I was living home at the time. And I told her all these things. My grandma told me that she would come to me in dimes. If I would see dimes on the ground, that would be her way of communicating with me and saying that she's there. Just different things. And I'm telling my mom this, right? And at the time I lived upstairs in their house, and we're talking, and my TV turns on upstairs out of nowhere, blasting. And it wasn't TV. It wasn't cable. It was static, which always caught me because I was I had the cable on. Why was it the black and white static? Right. But anyway, so it's so loud that me and my mom are what the hell is that? So we go upstairs, and I open the door, and there's with my mom, and there's 2 dimes on the floor. As soon as I open the door, and then I get this cold chill through my whole body, and I actually started to like tear up because I knew it was like her.
Mm-hmm.
And then our phone rang, and on the caller ID it was my grandma's cell phone.
Ah.
And like that was like a whole like paradigm shift.
Mm-hmm.
It like made it more real, I guess, instead of just like a dream. And then like from that moment, she would start to come to me more and more and more until I actually went to see an actual medium. And as soon as I walked in the room, the medium knew my name.
Mm.
And she was like, your grandmother's been here and she needs to talk to you. And as soon as she said that, I felt my grandma standing next to me. Like I felt her. I knew she was there. It was like a forgotten awareness, you know?
Before we move on to the medium, was your grandmother like, that's a pretty powerful experience, not just experience, but that's powerful for a spirit to be able to do that. Not all of them are quite that powerful. Was your grandmother sort of psychic or religious or something, or just like a really strong personality?
I think she was a strong personality. I mean, ancestral. I've always felt like she did do stuff, but I don't know what she did necessarily, or it wasn't known. You know, I'm
Italy?
Italian.
Yeah.
Yes. So like Sicilian, and there's always been like associated with kind of like
Evil eye
witchcraft or, like that type of stuff. Like they know how to protect themselves. Right. And there's all these like, home remedies for things, but it wasn't known. Right. So if she did it, it was hidden.
Okay. But she certainly sounds like really, really strong. That's great. So what information did the psychic or the medium have to tell you?
Well, she told me that, like, the first thing she told me was that, like, as soon as I felt her, it was like, it like made sense. Like everything made sense in a way. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I almost got addicted to connecting to spirit. Mm-hmm. I like intense experiences. And I think that's why one of the reasons I'm here is like, I like, even if it's like, instead of being addicted to a drug, it's like, I'm addicted to like intense experience.
That's why a lot of us do paranormal investigations. I feel like it's an adrenaline addiction.
Yeah. And I'm a Scorpio moon. So I think that like brings intense experiences, intense emotions, and she really just told me that my grandmother wanted me to do this work. That's like why I'm here. Oh. And that she's going to teach me. And she kind of became like a mentor to me and kind of taught me a lot of things. And
the medium did, or your grandmother?
The medium. Oh. But my grandmother was also, my main ancestral guide that kind of, worked with me for the first like 5 years of me kind of having experiences and opening up.
Awesome. And for those of you, I'm going to talk Pete into being on my Patreon and doing some of his mediumship exercises, because I know you have a bunch of those. Or everybody, that's what you did at Alien School, right? You actually taught a mediumship class.
Yeah, I taught a mediumship class.
Yeah, you should get that online.
Yeah, I'm in the process of building I have a Patreon.
Okay.
It's kind of, like I do like bi-weekly like videos teaching different stuff. But I'm in the process of trying to make like an online class. I have it all kind of written out, and I'm, making videos and stuff like that. But I mean, the key to me is that like, I don't think mediumship is a gift. I think everybody has it, and it's a God-given ability. It's just people don't realize that they're communicating with spirit in a way.
I love that, because I hear a lot of mediums will say, all mediums are psychic, but all psychics are not mediums. And I always think people can learn anything. They just have to put their mind to it.
Yeah, I think that comes with people trying to control information and the need to have people seek them out. But, my goal really has always been more teaching. And like, I feel like mediumship, people think of mediumship as a way of just really, oh, you're communicating with spirit. But to me, I feel like it's more of like a spiritual evolution. And I've seen like what it did for me. So I know what it could do for other people,
I love
because,
that.
well, because I feel like in general, like if you want to break it down to a concept, you're when you work with spirit, you raise your vibration, whatever you're doing. I think even if you're working psychically, because you are connecting to something that's helping you.
Mm-hmm.
So to work with them, you have to raise your vibration. So what does that mean? You're raising your vibration, right?
Yeah.
So if your core energy is being raised up, that means that the things that aren't that high in you, whether it's trauma, emotions, anxiety, whatever, it has to come up. Yeah. For you to work. So over time, the more you consistently work, it's only natural that these things have to come up to be processed.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know where I was. I know I was maybe angry or just say it, whatever. And I know that over time from doing this work, everything has come up. A lot of things. I mean, I'm still working, but like a lot of things have come up, and I know I'm a better person now. I know I have more love in me. I know a lot of the fears and angers out of me. There's still stuff I'm working on, but I'm definitely, I would say from 20 years ago, I'm a totally different person.
It's funny because I sort of pushed, I had to move to Utica, New York, and I'm finally starting to see like it's just supposed to be a deep, dark shadow dive for me. That's all this is while I'm here. Obviously taking care of my parents is important, and that's why I'm here. But it's such a strange place, that exactly what you're saying. And I feel like 2022 is the year that is like, oh no, you're going to deal with it, or we're going to make you deal with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, your parents, who's a better teacher than your parents?
Yeah, it's actually funny because my relationship with my parents is actually really, it became kind of great as time went on. Probably I would say from 40 on, I'm 57, it got better and better and better. And it's, they both have dementia. There's nothing you can do there except try and keep them happy in the moment, which is interesting. But yeah, this town though, like my whole identity had to go. My LA comedian, this is what I do, tarot reader, blah, blah, blah. Like I had to let go of everything and sort of rebuild. But it is all the work either that hasn't been done or hasn't. And it's funny that you say that, because I feel like I'm just on the cusp of breaking sort of into this mediumship where I'm comfortable doing it for people, or it could become like a thing I do add to my website. When you talk about mediumship, there's two things that I find people some don't differentiate, and I do. So there's you talking to your grandmother, and then there's a sort of mediumship of guides or other beings, which I consider that to be channeling, but maybe I'm just being nitpicky. Do you feel like there's a difference there?
I mean, I guess yes and no, because I feel like sometimes in order to tap into, like, the average spirit you're connecting to is on one wavelength, and I feel like if you're connecting into like a higher dimension or something, you have to be able to get there, because I feel like it might be, they're at a higher vibration, somebody who's a guide or an angel or some other sort of interdimensional being or whatever you're connecting to. So I would say as a whole, you would have to be able to tap into that, Yeah. So, I feel, see, the way I work is I'm very empathic. Like if I tap into you, I could feel everything going on with you or anybody necessarily. And it just has always been like that. So like, I feel a lot of things. So when I'm connecting to a spirit, it comes through and I feel pressure on my nose. That's just how it manifests. And then like if it's a guide or different beings who I work with, I have pressure. It's weird. I have like all pressures around my face. So like my chin is like if a guide is trying to talk to me. I feel Mother Mary is like my right eyebrow. I feel like the Palladian sometimes, and that's like my left eyebrow. And there's just a lot of different depending on who's coming through. So I think it's just like it's like attracts like. If you are able to get to that vibration, then I think you can connect to different vibrations necessarily.
Yeah, that makes sense. I always feel like I like that because I always feel pressure in my left ear when something's around. I'm not as good at differentiating or things like you were just saying, but I always feel like it's my left ear. And then I just watched a video where someone's like, "It's always your right ear," and I was like, "I guess there's no rules there."
Yeah.
So yeah,
Because we're different expressions. So it's like I'm a different expression of God, you're a different expression of God. So you interpret things differently or express things differently. It's the same, in a way it's the same thing, but it's not, it's like you have your own version of understanding.
Sure. And probably we all have our own physiology, or, maybe it's easier for a spirit to tap on my left ear than it is to tap on your nose. It's interesting because just to go back real quick, that first kid that you saw when you were younger and you saw in that house where the boy died, and I know that it's kind of a long time ago, but you were just like, yuck. But it's very interesting what you said about the eyes. There is a very interesting, I have to find her handle, a girl on TikTok, and she says, "I'm a diagnosed sociopath." And she talks about how she manipulates people. And I totally believe her from what she's saying. But also, when I look in her eyes, something's very wrong. Like it's not death, but it almost, when you said that about the boy, it kind of reminded me like maybe was that a residual haunting, do you think? And there wasn't really a person in there, or was there, it's like something's missing. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is like, I've always been into weird stuff, like whether it was like I was always attracted to like, more of that nature of things. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were sitting in I'll never forget, because I remember we were sitting in the house and like I used to read ghost books, blah, blah, blah. And we were all just hanging out in a group. I mean, I might have been like 13, and we were like sitting and like trying to talk to spirits. And the candle, like this candle kept flickering like ridiculously, and the flame would shoot up. And like we were all laughing, and it was kind of like half playing around. And I remember turning and just seeing this boy in the corner, and nobody else saw it. And it just like freaked me out. And then the girl who lived in the house, she told me that they would hear knocks in the corners of the houses, in that corner of the house. And then she told me about how they said a boy passed before they moved into this house. And I was just like, that's what I saw, like I didn't, I remember really being just terrified and being like, please, I will have a heart attack if I see that again, like, please don't show me that ever again,
Do you see spirits now? Or more sense them?
I'm more am a feeler. I have seen things, and I've seen the things I've seen actually have more been like, more weirder, like alien type stuff. But I don't really see spirits necessarily. I feel like I'm very, like we talked about the whole growth period. I feel like the last 5 years, I've really like learned how to like have boundaries and be in control. And like I've went through this whole like dark night of soul experience. And I think like, what happens is when you do start to like raise your vibration as you work and do this, you kind of hit like a plateau area where things aren't affecting you as much anymore. It's not this like heavy experience of being an empath or whatever. It's like you have this like new sense of like self, I guess you could say. I don't know.
I love that. Hold on one second. I got 100 million more questions. Hold on, folks. We'll be right back.
Many people are unaware just how much hypnotherapy can help them, or think it's only to help lose weight or quit smoking. But there is so much more hypnotherapy can do. It can help with stress, anxiety, insomnia, phobias, performance enhancement, connecting with your spirit guides and higher self. You can even discover past lives and your life between lives. Heal traumas, break habits, find your deepest truth, or just have fun discovering who you really are, all from the comfort of your home. I'm Monique Pliakis. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I want to help you. Schedule a free consult by going to www.innerstandingshypnosis.com. That's INNERSTANDINGSHYPNOSIS.com. Innerstandings Hypnosis. Find your power and ignite your inner light.
Okay. And folks, if you want to join the Patreon, it's Blue Collar Spiritualist. Go to the Instagram. All the links are there in Linktree and stuff like that. Okay. So I had a friend that used to, she was a librarian, and she would see spirits the same as humans. It was like, I don't know if that's like an amount seeing through, but she would oftentimes have to wait for them to sort of dissolve, that she couldn't tell the difference between real people and dead people. And then her father passed suddenly, and there was so much grief that she couldn't see anything anymore. And that's exactly what my tarot teacher told me, was that this grief lowered her vibration, so she couldn't physically see. It actually took a couple of years before that came back to her, because I'm kind of curious. That's really what I would love. Sometimes we see that when we're investigating, but it's never like a positive. And that's my goal, is to see something like that. Except I know that spirits hang out at the bottom of your bed, and that's not when I want it to happen. I always say I like Liam Neeson, but I don't need to see Liam Neeson surprise me at the end of my bed in the middle of the night. That would be too much. It's funny that you said that plateau, because I thought I hit it years ago, and then it's like, oh, are you ready for a new level? I watch a lot of Carolyn Miss, and one of her videos, she talks about how, so you asked for change. Like, she's one of these, she's really a motivational person, like, get up and do it, just do it. But she yells at you at the same time.
Yeah.
But she was like, so your angel sits there and goes, okay, you got to quit the job, or do you want us to get you out of it? You got to get out of this relationship, or do you want us to do it? Do you want us to get a girlfriend for your boyfriend? Like, she goes through the list of how hard that dark night of the soul can be, with all the things we need to let go of and don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think I've told you what I do, but I do underground tunnels. I dig underground tunnels in New York City.
Oh, wow.
And it's called a sand hog. We drill all the subway tunnels and stuff like that. So like, I would be in the city, when I was first kind of opening up and having these experiences, just imagine how many spirits are on a New York subway.
Wow.
So like, when I'm open and I'm wide open, I could feel 100 people at one time. And, you can only imagine what that is for your nervous system, for, your emotions, your mind in general. Because I would say there was a 2-year period where I thought I was absolutely insane, schizophrenic or whatever, like, I would be so sensitive. I could feel anything. I would feel like the trees. There was a specific time I remember walking my dog, and I could like almost feel my dog, like what he was feeling, and feeling the trees and like all these things, and you're wide open, and it's so overwhelming. And some of the other work I do is shamanic work, which is the work I did heavier work, which is like dealing with attachments, entities, people passing, that type of work. So I would help people clear attachments and do clearings on people. And it was always this big process. And they kind of put me through this whole initiation where I would have my own entities attached to me and clear them. And I remember specifically, it was New Year's Eve night. And when I was really going through this dark night of the soul, I was married, but like my wife would know, like I wouldn't want to do anything because it would be a lot of stuff would be overwhelming. And, thankfully she always supported me. But I remember she went out with her friends on New Year's Eve night and I stayed home. And I had this like some sort of attachment that I had to deal with. And to somebody just listening, it probably sounds crazy, but
no, you're in the right spot.
so, so I remember like dealing with probably over a 5-year period, say 1,000 attachments, and I would say half of them were on me personally. Bringing things home from the city, helping them pass, and it just got to the point where it was like, I don't know if I could do this anymore. Like I'm really losing my mind. And it was New Year's Eve night. And I remember this sometimes when you have attachments, I don't know if you've had experiences, but, they can really magnify emotions. So like if you're sad or you're angry, like it's magnified tenfold. And whatever was with me was really magnifying like fear and anxiety. And I remember like being home and thinking like, I'm going to die. Like something's happening. Like I'm dying. This is it. Like today is the day I die. And I remember I got in my car and I drove to where I knew my wife was, and I'm driving there. And I remember like seeing flashes and like really thinking I'm dying. And then all of a sudden it just hit me like, and I was like, no, I'm in control. Like I have the power. This, whatever is within me has no power. And I remember I drove home and I had like a room I did healings in, and I laid on the bed and I said, enough. This is it. I understand why I'm here. I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm passing this into the light, and that's it. Like, you're not allowed to affect me anymore. And I had this whole visualization of, I saw Archangel Metatron, and he came to me and he told me like, this whole experience has just been an initiation just to get you ready for what you're supposed to do. And then
go ahead.
Oh, and then I cleared that entity, and then I never had another one since.
So, okay, so I have all my notes. It's interesting. Do you ever work in the subway tunnels that are working tunnels but need to be fixed, or do you only dig new ones?
I do a combination of both.
I cannot imagine the amount of energy working on a tunnel that has been that people have been riding on, because that whether it's even just the few people that fall off or die in the subway area or get pushed under a train or whatever, but literally the live people, like how much mass energy is in those tunnels, it's got to be crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm actually not in the city anymore. I'm out on Long Island now, but for the last like 2 years. So I've been blessed.
Yes, there is, there's been something about 2022 that I keep saying, I'm dead. And I know I'm not dead, but it's a weird, I always just figure, okay, that goes through your head because that's a cycle. But it's funny because the house I'm living in now, which is incredibly, I finally got the space that I live in cleared, but it's a kind of a chaotic place. So I have to clear my space. But there was quite a bit of mob Utica was the mob home, and there was so much mob activity. And whenever I walked by the stove and it was on, I'd have this feeling like, put your hand on it and burn your hand. And then I finally occurred to me, that's something that happened in this house that I'm hearing, like a residual that I think I finally got out. But I know what you're like, that energy, that repeat sort of residual energy can be as bad as an entity, can't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
I mean, we could do a clearing after this if you want.
If you want. I think I'm pretty good, but I'll take it just because it's such a weird, even the feng shui of this place is like wild. So how did you get into shamanic work? Was it a part of it? Was it messages you got? What happened with that?
Well, so I, when I was first kind of opening up, I had just, through synchronicities and coincidences, I became friendly with different people and would meet different people. Like I randomly met somebody who was like a minister at a spiritualist church, and he kind of mentored me a little bit. And somebody recommended a shaman, so I said, all right, I'll check it out. I mean, what does it hurt? Like, I don't know. This is kind of when I first started having experiences. So she sent me to this lady, and I go and I pull up to her house. And as soon as I pull up to her house, I felt like weirdly anxious. And I was just like, what's this about? Like, and I remember almost like feeling like dreamy there, like when I went to walk into the house, it felt like I was almost like in a dream state. And so I sit down with this lady, and she teaches me how to do drum journeys and rattle journeys, and she explains kind of what a shamanic journey is. I don't know if you're familiar with shamanic journey work.
A little bit, but feel free to describe it for everybody.
So basically, they believe that there's this is from Siberia-based shamanism. So they believe there's 3 realms. There's a lower realm, middle realm, upper realm. The lower realm is like animals and animal totems. They're kind of like archetypes. The middle realm is like the energetic expression of our realm. And then the upper realm is like considered like heaven or like the higher dimensions. So basically you can journey to each of these realms depending on what you want to work on. And they use like a drum or any kind of music repetitive beat. They find puts your brain into what's like theta state, which is like a meditative state. Mm-hmm. So she leads me on a journey and kind of explains, kind of just relax and visualize, kind of connecting to the spiritual realm. And she kind of like holds the space for me. So when we do the first journey, I see this like being, and he kind of looks like, the best way to describe him is he looks like Nosferatu.
I don't know what that is.
Nosferatu is like the old vampire, like the classic vampire movie, okay. The guy with the big ears
okay,
and the pointy nose and like the long fingers, like the creepiest probably looking thing you could find. And he like pretty much takes up my whole mind's eye when I'm in there, in this like meditation. And that's all that comes to me. And she's like, did you notice anything? I'm like, yeah, I saw this like weird vampire looking being, and he pretty much took all my mind's eye. And she's like, yeah, you have a spiritual attachment. And at the time I was like, what the hell is that? Like, I didn't even know what it was, because this was like, I don't know, 2010, 2008.
So I know what you're talking about. Do you think, just a quick question, do you think that was what that thing looked like? Or do you think like in a way something creepy was represented like that? Like does that question make sense?
Yeah. Like I think a lot of times it's like anything, right? You can say, I feel his energy. It looks like an angel to me. But somebody who's maybe not familiar with an angel would say, oh, it looks like alien, It's like your interpretation of the energy. Like, I think you feel things and I think spirit uses your memories, your nervous system,
right,
to kind of get you to understand what you're seeing.
So that would be like your mind shows you a vampire, so this doesn't seem good.
Instead of like right away, I know it's not good. Whatever it is,
yes,
it's not good.
The few like beings that I think I see, I try to draw, because I think that now that my brain is like, okay, I can kind of handle what you look like. They're just weird. They just don't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, I think nothing really makes sense anymore,
Good. That's good.
And, you just kind of like interpret what you see. Like I've seen like grasshopper, praying mantis beings.
Yes.
Like I've seen that. They've worked with me consistently.
I've seen something that was like had all these branches like a tree, but it wasn't a tree. And it was very friendly. Okay. So she says you got an attachment. Go ahead. Keep going.
All right. So she's like, I'm going to work with her guide at the time was Isis, the Egyptian goddess.
Oh,
And
the
she's like,
synchronicities are killing me. I just had an ISIS book. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
really cool. Yeah, so she's like, she's gonna work with me, and we're gonna clear this out. And I'm like, okay, like, and I'm getting like anxious, and I'm like, what the hell? So she starts rattling, and she's telling me to relax, and all of a sudden I feel like something is being pulled out of my body, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Because it's like, oh my God, like, and it literally felt like something being pulled out of my body. And then when she was finished, like, I couldn't believe the shift that happened, like how much lighter I felt, how much like happier and clearer I felt. And I mean, who knows? Like, I could have been carrying that around for years.
I have a funny story. In fact, that I know how sneaky those attachments can be when they can get on you, but I feel like I know now when something has hopped on or hop off. You know what I mean? Like, now.
Yeah, well, now, I mean, I could feel stuff on you if you have something going on right now, if I could.
Yes. Oops, I dropped my pencil. I was going to say I had a very bad fairy attachment. Or I think it was a fairy, whatever. I'm doing a whole comedy special on it. It's a fairy in the special. But when it got removed, I was working with my friend. My friend Tommy was getting it off me, and his cat walked in the room and sort of hissed at it and kind of pointed. And I dropped a half inch, like my body dropped down a half inch, and it was gone. Like, it has a physical effect on you when it's gone.
Oh, definitely, without a doubt. And the stronger or the longer or the more rooted it is in your body, the more of an effect it has. I mean, my 3 main ways of telling if somebody has something is typically it feels like, well, I was always taught, what she told me from this actually is a great example. She told me that when spirit is confused or stuck here or attached here, sometimes if you have a high vibration, they consider you the light. They're confused. They don't know. So that's why they go to you. And typically your light is in your heart. So that's where you typically feel an attachment first, or you're aware of it first. So to me, like, if something's going on, and then there's like a weird smell around.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and Prithvika is my collection of consciously created crystal and nature-forged jewelry. Prithvika translates to of the earth in Hindi, which represents the natural earth-made materials I'm working with, along with my personal ancestry and grounded energy. Each piece is created through ceremony and science, and completed with being Reiki charged. I'm currently featuring copper mirror necklaces, which can be used for protection and mirror magic. My intention is for your new piece of jewelry to feel like an extension of self, to help bring your desires to fruition and to amplify the magic within you. My Instagram is @Prithvika, and my website is prithvika.com. That's PRTHVEEKA.com.
Okay. So we're recording. So there seems to be a ghost in my recorder or something. And so, but I have it recording, so we're going to go with it. So my thing and my Zoom recorder was full, and it cut off right after Pete. You were saying there's 3 ways that and then you said that the lady taught you that, like, when spirits see you as a light, which I thought was the most fascinating thing. So if you're a higher frequency, they see you as the light as to where they're supposed to go to, right?
Yeah, well, they get confused by your high vibration. You give off almost like a beacon, like a light. And they're confused, so they come to you and they mistake you for the light, and that's how they latch on. So typically they latch on where you spark from, which is your heart, your soul, your spirit. So you'll feel them if they're attached to you there first, and I always feel it. To me, I describe it as like 2 or 3 finger worth of pressure on your heart. You feel this like slight pressure.
Wow. I actually never thought I never thought of it that way, which is really interesting, which would also sort of explain why it's not always something nasty. Sometimes there's like neutral attachments that are just taking your energy.
Yeah, well, they come in a lot of different forms, but to me, I find that people kind of attract their attachments. There's usually something that's in line with them, or like attracts like. It's very simple. So like if you're maybe somebody who goes to anger as your negative emotion, you'll attract something that's angry or had a similar life experience or some sort of there's some sort of similarity.
Addict returns to where it used to buy the drugs and finds another addict and attaches on.
Exactly. So that's why I find that whatever your negative go-to emotion is, it magnifies when you have an attachment for some reason.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like the energy is, like attracts like, so it's a similar vibe, so it magnifies similar issues,
Now, have you seen other negative attachments like non-human attachments?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And within myself, I did mushrooms one time and had like some sort of interdimensional attachment form with me.
With you or on you?
On me, deep in my solar plexus. But my solar plexus has always been, it's my best ability in a sense, because it's very, I'm very open, but it's also like my biggest weakness in a way, because I think I was always so open,
Yeah, it's funny because I think the mushrooms for microdosing are great, but I have a really intense therapist that knows all these things, and she always worries that even with microdosing, that it is a sort of an open doorway for that kind of thing.
Well, I'm microdosing right now, so
right.
I am. I mean, I started doing it like about 2 months ago, and I absolutely love it. I think it's I think it's
a bigger help than a hindrance, right?
I think everything has a time and a place, and you have to maybe learn about things and know your energy. And I think the experience I actually had, the negative experience, was needed. Maybe at the time it didn't help, and it took me about a year to get over, but I think I needed it. I think I think all these things serve us in the end. They don't, you may not feel that at the moment because you're suffering, but it was an ego death. It was, a lot of things happened. It helped me really learn boundaries. It helped me, you got to realize too, I think, even in terms of like how I talked about vibration, and the more you raise your vibration, the more you clear out these things that are affecting you negatively. I think it's the same thing even for attachments. Like, I think when you have these attachments, when you clear them finally, I think they take with them a lot of the stuff that you're working on. But that's just my experience or my awareness. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. It's just what I felt. I feel like when I did clear these things out, it almost made my energy stronger. Yeah. And, I feel like when I do clearings on people, they feel a shift within themselves. So something's changing.
Yeah, maybe it was also to bring awareness to that, or, or what is that saying? The first thing is admitting you have a problem.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, awareness is the key. It's like if you don't know what's going on with you, how can you shift it?
Right. Okay, so did this shaman teach you how to do clearings, or was it more people, or she took you under your wing? What happened?
Well, she kind of told me after we did the clearing, we did another journey, and she kind of told me that I guess some people have different abilities, and she said that I was part of her tribe, and I had this ability to, she calls it like they call it a psychopomp in shamanism, and that's the ability to like help people pass into the afterlife as well as clear energy and do stuff like that. I mean, but I think eventually everybody will have this ability. You know, like
I was wondering about that because when I moved into this house, the first thing I did was sort of I lit a candle and sort of crossed things over to the best of my abilities, and then I left and came back, and there was a hole in the ceiling, like a water had leaked through or something, like the ceiling fell in. And I was
oh
like,
yeah, that's interesting.
And my friend Tommy was like, "Well, I guess you shifted that energy pretty good."
Yeah, well, water in a house is always like emotional residue. It's always like a heavy. There's like energy there, and the water is always emotion. So like anybody who has leaks in their house, there's like emotional stuff going on in their house. And because it's funny, because the same thing happened in my house. Actually, I had a leak from the ceiling in my house. Same type of stuff. So, I work with like, there was a long time frame of consistently clearing stuff and working with stuff. And, I think there's so many layers to it of like, even dealing with energy and working through your own emotional issues,
Yeah, it's funny because this house that I live in, a while before, a long time, maybe 20 years before, somebody flooded it. Somebody flooded the second floor to the point where all the floors are warped. And so it has a fun house effect to it. That's kind of weird. Like all the doors are sort of shaved at an angle. Yeah, it's kind of funny because my friend Renee always says when she does my astrology, she's like, "No, you are the paranormal. You're not moving. You are it." So it's kind of weird. Like this house has so much to it. And like I said, I feel like I'm on the cusp of hitting that mediumship in a different level. So almost like I think I'm in the right house.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm somebody who always I always pick things apart, and whether it's emotional, whether it's like why I think certain things. So it's like when I got into mediumship, it's like I want to understand every aspect, and sometimes I probably put myself in situations maybe that I shouldn't have just to get like a deeper understanding. Whether it was conscious or unconscious, I've done the house clearings. I've dealt with all types of entities or beings and stuff like that. So it's like, how can I, understand something if I don't have, every type of experience with it?
Yeah, this house, because it's weird because I'm in this, everything about my life right now is just a little stuck. Like I don't own stuff, so I want to stay in this house where it's furnished. So I don't want to move to another place, buy stuff, and then move again after my parents pass. So I'm sort of like, everything is like, I can't quite make that decision, but I know I don't have to be here. But it is funny because I think it crossed over at a point in the beginning. This house almost tested me, and like pictures would fly off the walls and stuff. And then it crossed over, and I think now it likes me. Like, I think now it's a protector. But it is interesting, like when you said, it's not a great place. That's like, I feel like the walls have been painted with sadness. So I go through and clear them as much as possible. But it's been like, this year is 100 years old. This house is 100 years old. So I'm giving it the best, but I think it's slowly changing.
Yeah. I mean, like my house it was built in 1907. So I live in like an old Victorian type house. And, I've always done I always do like practices in my house. I clear the energy. I put crystals all over my house. I've worked with the spirit of my house, like tried to contact the spirit of my house and worked with it. It's also the land you're on. So there's so many factors. And I would just always call in support. I used to leave mantras playing in the background.
Yes.
Like I just leave my YouTube TV on and I'd put like mantras because I have a strong connection to like the Hindu pantheon. So I would leave like Kali or Durga, and it would like, I don't know, it always like uplifted the energy of my house, So it's always an ongoing thing. Plus all the people inside their emotions. I have 3 kids. They're high vibration, but they get affected. I think it has a stronger effect on the energy of a home.
Yeah, and I don't feel like everybody that lives here is there's been, like, I noticed with the other neighbors, they have a little bit of troubled stuff. But as a siren goes by.
Maybe that's a sign.
Exactly. But yeah, I kind of saw, there's this lady on TikTok I like that says, say hello to your house when you walk in and say goodbye when you leave, like treat it like a friend. And I think that was actually the crossover. And I did do something on the land. It was very funny to be in the front yard of a very busy street, sort of leaving the land a sacrifice as traffic goes by. But I think that did start to turn it so that I feel very safe here. And it's very interesting because the bedroom to me is like, I walk in that room and I go, I love this room, as opposed to the other. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's like anything. If you want change, you have to put it out there. You have to like find your way, whether it's, dressing up your home or decorating it a certain way, or like having certain, like I have an altar. Like I think it's important to have like your ancestors around. Like I have pictures of my grandmother, my grandfather. All that stuff affects the energy of a place.
yeah. When you've cleaned homes, have you seen some nasty stuff that didn't want to go?
Um, yeah. I mean, like, see, the thing is it always comes back to energy and like attracting like attracts like. Predominantly, most house clearings I've ever done, there's always like relationship issues within the home. Like I would say 75% easily there was like a divorce going on as well, like different stuff like that. Like, so I remember one house I cleared, there was a child who was hit by a car. I found out later, in the house, and she was lingering in the house for some reason, but it was also connected to like the children in the actual house. The alive children were actually having issues because the parents were getting divorced, blah blah blah. But there was so much energy there. I had, in front of the people, I think I freaked them out. I had actual conversation with the spirit through knocks. Like I could feel the spirit there, and I said, if you're here, show me a sign. And it would knock, and then I would say 2 knocks for yes, 1 knock for no, whatever, and it would actually have like interactions with me. But I would say the only time I really had an issue was there was it was a house on Long Island, and there was a priest from like, I don't know, 200 years ago or 100 years ago that was doing some sort of ritual stuff, darker stuff. And it was definitely a dark energy. And I felt like he was like doing stuff energetically to some sort of specific group, whether I felt Native American, and he was doing like weird stuff. And that energy took a while to get rid of. And I actually had to go twice to the house, and then it finally let go. But it was doing some sort of ritual magic, and was like holding its ground there.
I think that's more common than we know.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. Definitely.
Utica itself has had quite a few of like satanic things happen, or murders, like satanic weird ritual murders. And I kind of feel like it's the land. It's pretty bad land up here. As for history, going from the, Revolutionary War, the Civil War, everything went through here. So I think sometimes it's funny because I think the land, if somebody starts that there, then you get a repeat. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And that's what I think happens. But I feel like in the end, we always have the power.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that can really, it can mess with you. But in the end, I think if you realize your power, you can really deal with anything.
Yeah. Or you can talk to my demonologist. One of those two things.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've never really. So, but the other thing too is like, I mean, I've said this 4 times probably already, is like attracts like. So if you're of the light, I don't think those things can come to you as much.
I'm 75% on board with that, but I have seen people just move into a house and that was the wrong house. Or, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but why did they experience that? Like, maybe there's something unconscious that you're not aware of.
It could be, but it also could be a different life. Like, I think because of the bad stuff I've seen, I'm open to interpretation on that rule. I have seen some people just get in the wrong house. Maybe it is unconscious or maybe it's something else, but sometimes it's just, I don't know. I'll leave that there. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know either, to be honest. I don't know either. I'm just saying, like,
no,
from
I would
my
say
experience,
95% of the time, yes, somebody has pulled something in themselves. I think there's just a few where it's random, but or on a bigger scale that I can't comprehend. But anyways, Pete, I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Yeah, it was fun.
I hope that whatever I cut out wasn't the most important thing we said.
I'm sure it wasn't.
And I hope you will be on my Patreon and help give a medium class there if it's okay.
Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Oh, fantastic. All right. So everybody, you're going to find Pete at Blue Collar Spiritualist on Instagram and TikTok. Spiritual Graffiti is the podcast you want to listen to. And also, you just gave it to me. Your Patreon is, I just wrote it down. Where'd it go? It's in the link at Instagram. How's that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Awesome.
BlueCollarSpiritualist.com or whatever.
There.
Yeah.
I love that. Put in whatever and see. You'll find him.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Pete. And I'll be talking to you after I hang up from this call. And thanks, everybody. Thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media. Everybody, we will see you next week. Paranormal Karen. She's a spooky kind of queen. Paranormal Karen.